Sorry I'm last minute. It's my mom's 85th birthday, and you only get one of those.
Oh.
So.
And it's today.
And it's today, and yeah. And
nice.
I just was there to watch her blow out the candle and then head out the door, so. All right, we'll call the meeting to order at this time. And appreciate, obviously, the board being here for our regular meeting, and then the public that's come to join us tonight. Welcome. We always like to begin with a word of prayer, and tonight it is Mr. Velding. So, Gary,
all right.
if you would.
Is my mic on? Mic's on? Okay. Let's pray. Our gracious God and Heavenly Father, we come to you, Lord, this evening. We thank you for the blessings of the day. We thank you for the blessings of our country. We thank you for the blessings of Georgetown Township. We ask for guidance tonight in the decisions we must make. Give us wisdom and discernment. We also bring before you our first responders. Give them safety, O Lord, in all that they do and say. We also pray for our men and women on the front lines that are fighting the wars, rumor wars, that give us the freedom that we are able to enjoy. Be us now, Lord, in all that we do and say, and may we be blessed by this meeting too. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Please join us to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, dear clerk, that all are present tonight?
All are present.
The agenda, which you can't see and normally would see on the screen, both board members and public as well. Is there a motion tonight to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Yes. I was just thinking about that too, Rob. I want to make a motion to place on our agenda this evening something that came up on Friday, and that is that we have a need to have an EDC committee meeting, which comes up about once every 5 years, it seems, if not longer. And there was a need to hold a meeting as it related to the bond involving Waterford. And I don't know if it was to amend something that had been previously passed. It was fairly non-substantive, but yet nonetheless necessary. Help me with that, Rob, because I only heard about it Friday.
Cover, so they need a small amendment to that contract. We're party to that with no liability, of course. So they need to hold a meeting between April 24 and May 24 of the EDC to resolve that.
All right.
And that has prompted us to update our EDC committee with some new names, because we have names on there that are no longer with Georgetown.
Okay. So it looks like everyone's been distributed that sheet. And so I'd like to move, understand this is not, we're not voting on what it is that is substantive here that they're saying has changed or needs to be covered. We're simply looking at who we might appoint. And so at this point, I'm not asking you to approve even who we might appoint, but just to add to the agenda tonight as what we'll call 11A, this matter of appointing replacements to the EDC now that both Dan Carlton and Rod Weirstein are no longer with us. So is there a second to my motion to add that as item 11A tonight?
Support.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Again, you can have discussion on the substance of who we might appoint, but does anybody have any discussion about the idea of adding this to the agenda?
Couldn't go through finance?
You know, I debated whether I could just appoint, but I thought the last time we had that discussion, it seemed that it would ultimately wind up in the board as it has here with other committees, and so I felt like we may as well bring it right to the board. So. Fair enough?
Yep. We got time. It could go finance and then make a board meeting before.
Okay. Well, we have an objection. We have support. Any other comments? Okay. All in favor then of adding the item to the agenda as 11A, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. So it will be item 11A. And now with that change to tonight's agenda, there a motion to amend the agenda as now revised?
So moved.
Support.
Supported. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, and it's passed. Item number 6, communication letters and report received for information. Pretty short list of those this week to read through. Item 7, public comments. So we have the public obviously here with us each meeting. We have a few more than usual, although I've seen a lot more than this before over the years. But it always tells me there's an item of interest somewhere among the crowd, maybe more than one. And there are 2 public comment periods that you will have an opportunity to speak at tonight. You're able to speak at this public comment period right now to address items on the remaining agenda, which will make sure you have the agenda in your hands if you needed to see it. So if you see an item on there and you're like, I came to talk about that, this is going to be your chance. And then later in the meeting, after the business is conducted, and right at the end, there'll be a second public comment period, and then you're welcome to speak to anything you like, whether it was something we just discussed on the agenda or something completely different, okay? All we ask is that when you come forward to speak, try to adjust that microphone so we can all hear you well, identify your name and your street address, and realize that you have 3 minutes. And I would say just one more thing about that. If you say, well, I've never done this before, don't expect that the board is going to engage in dialogue. It's not because we're not listening and aren't interested in what you have to say, but this is your chance to speak to an issue that we're going to deal with tonight. And so we're here to listen to what you have to say. All right? So is there anyone during this first public comment period that would like to address the board? I know there are several, but it's probably a matter of who goes first. So if someone want to break the ice. I don't want to close it if you came to speak to something. Yep. Welcome.
Karen Bacon, 7484 Pine Grove Drive. I'm here because I became aware that you're considering hiring a person to take a look at trying to have some pickleball courts in the area. And I just want to state that I do not agree with this move. We have a lot of tennis courts, and people have said, well, they're not used, but they're not used because there's cracks and stuff. I think it's just much more fiscally responsible if the tennis courts that are there now were resurfaced or whatever needed so that they were usable, and you just paint the lines for pickleball and tennis. I mean, for tennis, if you're aware, to play doubles, the lines are different than singles. So, if you use a different color, it shouldn't be that confusing. But the dollar signs that were put out there that I heard, and I don't know if they're accurate or not, but still, I'd rather see that they have dual use of the tennis courts that we have now that already have their lighting and parking and stuff. And I would rather see the exorbitant amount of money that was mentioned be used to improve the parks we already have. Bathrooms should be open all the time, not just in the summer. People use the parks regularly. We are human beings. You don't want us to just squat behind a bush, but we got to have some place to go. And preferably not just outhouses, although that's better than nothing at all. And so I just think that it's so easy for people to spend money that it doesn't come right directly out of their own pocket, but a lot of us are on a fixed income, and especially hard times right now. And I just think that this is a really fiscally irresponsible move, and I would hope that you would not approve doing that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. And next. Yes, sir.
Good evening. William PLS 6579 Lily Street Southwest. My wife and I learned the game of pickleball 3 years ago, not in the state of Michigan, but down in Florida. And when we got back, we learned the game even more, and we have been able to enjoy the community, playing pickleball, getting to know a lot of new people. It's been wonderful. I usually, in my 26 years living in Georgetown, have never been to a township board meeting, but I hope you fully support the idea of building courts, because it's great for the community, and it would benefit Georgetown very much. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Steve Tower, 2819 North Wentworth Cart. I've been a Georgetown resident for 20-some years. And I also would echo what Bill just said about the pickleball idea. Those of us who have learned the game in the last few years and are playing it will figure out places to play. But there's a lot of people who have never had the opportunity because it's limited. In fact, in our area, there's almost no courts other than Hudsonville. So there is one at the park, I think, down by the lake, which is awful, but it's there. And you'd have to bring your own net. And so that's obviously a problem. But I just watch the people that come and play in Hudsonville in the evening during the summer. Families, sometimes 3 generations playing. It's a game that you can pick up fairly quickly and become relatively proficient at without a lot of time and effort. And I think there are a lot of people who don't know much about it, if anything, other than the silly name. And we'll find out about it and get a chance to really enjoy not only relationship building, but some healthy activity as well. And I think it would be a real plus for the community. So thank you for having the foresight to consider it.
Thank you.
Sharon Dykema, 7360 Torrey Drive. I just wanted to comment about the sharing of the pickleball and the tennis courts that the first person suggested. They do not use the same size nets, so if you do choose to share courts, you would have to have some way to have portable nets for one or the other. They do play indoor on tennis courts, and they usually have to have the tennis net between the 2 pickleball courts, and then you have to have the court sticking out behind the tennis court. So just something to think about.
What else? I'm going to be slow to close this one because you all came out, and if you want to speak on it. Yep. We have a young man with us. You interested? No? All right. Yeah.
Titus Camps, 2536 Fillmore. I've been playing for pickleball. This is what it's regarding. I would love to see pickleball courts put into Georgetown Township. Just to echo a few of the comments that have been said already, right now I drive to Hudsonville to play. They put up many new courts, which is very nice, but those courts are often very full as well. And I think it would be nice for the residents here in our township to be able to have access to something that is closer. Again, also, tennis courts are not ideal, can work, but not ideal because of the net difference. But I think also this is one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing sport in the United States. And so I think, too, for a township to look at that and be on the cutting edge or somewhat on the cutting edge, I would actually say behind, but I think it would be a benefit for the community to partake in something that is growing, a growing sport. And again, too, that so many different age levels. I have children that are teenagers. We all play together. I play with my parents. So 3 generations, again, can all play together, enjoy a same sport. And that, you try to think of how many other sports there are that you can bring together 3 just different generations and all play together. And I would say there's not a lot and still can be competitive. So I would encourage you to support this.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Jessica Bacon, 7471 Glendora. I've lived here in Georgetown Township for about 10 years now, and I see a lot of talk about things. Generally, I like what this board does. I was in favor of the library that I know caused a lot of ruckus. So to be clear, I'm not anti-Georgetown Township Board, but I am against investing a large amount of money into a pickleball court because it is a growing sport right now, but there's no guarantee that it will continue to grow or retain its popularity like any other trendy sport. When it falls off, if it falls off, we'll be stuck with courts that we spent a lot of money on that now people aren't using. I would show as an example disc golf, which had a very sharp rise in popularity and was very trendy for a while. And now, although people do still play it, it's not the trendy, popular sport that it used to be. In addition, although I know that lots of people came out tonight, both against and for this, I know that there was a survey, but I didn't learn about the survey until it was too late to turn it in. Many of us who have mortgages don't open our tax bills because the bank takes care of that for us, and so we would have had no way of knowing that there was a survey in that bill unless we opened it up and looked at it. Obviously, in the future, I'll pay more attention to those statements because I didn't know that was something you guys could do, but I didn't have a choice to, or a chance to, respond in that survey because I just let my bank handle those things for me. Today, in today's digital world, a lot of us don't open paper bills. So I just wanted to add those comments. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Jody Rinalda, and I live at 7620 Baldwin Woods Court. I only moved to Georgetown Township 4 years ago. I lived in Talmadge Township for 30 years. So I want to start by saying thank you for your service to our community. I appreciate how you opened this meeting with prayer. I appreciate how you covered our law enforcement and our military. It means a lot to me, and I thank you for that. And I thank you, sir, for your service. Thank you for being here. I actually typically don't come to meetings unless there is something that comes to my attention about, well, you should probably say yay or nay. And so I just want to say that I think it's worthy of the investigation of what our community could do with the pickleball court. So thanks for thinking to get a consultant and looking at if it would be a benefit to our community. Thanks for your time.
Hey, Johnny. Others of you, whether on pickleball or not. All right, going once, going twice. We will close that first public comment period. As I say, there will be a second one. It will be after the votes are taken, at least on the agenda items this evening, but you can both comment on what you've heard or on a new topic if you wish at that point. So, and I see Justin on his feet. I just want to welcome Justin again with the public here. Since that is our new assistant manager, and this was his first day today on the job. So, welcome, Justin. Glad to have you. So, scrambling at the first meeting. We appreciate you doing that. All right. Item number 8 is our consent agenda. So those are items for the public's benefit that we have all read about, and we can pass en masse unless a board member wishes to pull it out as its own individual item. So is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved.
Support. Moved and supported. Comments? Anyone? There were a number of items there, I know. Yep.
Would like to discuss the Georgetown Township event slip and slide for the Friday night event.
Okay. Do you want to uncouple that from 8-2 and pull them?
I do.
Just that one? Okay.
I do.
All right. Any other items? Okay. As this board knows, there can be some substantive items there that don't necessarily require discussion or maybe have had previous discussion, but we're always you're always welcome to pull them. So that item 8.3, how about if we were to add that, I guess can we call it 11B? Yeah?
Sure.
All right. Gary, I see you out on that slip and slide.
What's that?
I see you out on that slip and slide.
Yeah, that's me.
I think my problem is the Speedo. That's my only problem. I like
soap
seeing you
up-
out there, but
I soap up pretty good before I get there,
oil the body down. All right. Let's see here.
No video, though.
All right. So with that change, I'm going to ask all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Item number 9, 2022 Kent County, Ottawa County, and City of Grand Rapids Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. This was moved through the Services Committee. Is there a motion to place this before the board to possibly approve this plan?
I'll make a motion to approve the hazardous mitigation plan adoption resolution as recommended by Services.
Support. Okay, moved and supported by People and Services. And perhaps, I know we've read what you've presented to us. It might help to have one of you just explain, and for the public's benefit who's here tonight too, talk about generally what is this?
Rob, would you be willing to take that for us because you did such a great job at Services?
I would. So this is a 5-year update to the hazard mitigation plan, which is a combined Ottawa-Kent County plan that all local jurisdictions must approve in order to be eligible for FEMA dollars in the event of a serious event. So this has been approved by Ottawa County already, and it's our turn to approve it as a local.
And again, for the benefit of all, is this something that's been approved in the past is being renewed, or is this something?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And can you point to an instance that you may be aware of, and I know you've only been here a year, where it's actually been put into action? In other words, there was some crisis, hazard that had to be mitigated.
I cannot,
Yeah.
but Chief is in the room. Chief, have we had 217 was the plan prior. Have we had any incidents that would qualify under this?
We've never had any incidents of that magnitude that we had to implement this. Now, what we're talking here is a train derailment in Georgetown Township, and it goes to the minimum of 1. So anywhere in that perimeter is where this agreement.
Ted, how many didn't it cross your mind these past few weeks with Valentine's thinking, okay, we got a train, pretty big one that rolls through every day.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what all they're carrying all the time, but you see a pretty wide variety. So, all right, the motion is before the board. Discussion among board members about this. It's been 5 years since we last approved it.
From my perspective, we approve it and keep ourselves as eligible for FEMA dollars in the event that something ever were to happen in Georgetown, or we don't, and then don't have that kind of safety net were we to ever encounter some sort of issue. So to me, it feels like kind of rubber stamp it. It's something that we do on behalf of our residents, not knowing what the future holds, and as part of the greater community.
Okay.
It's common sense to go ahead with it.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Hearing no one else, I believe since it's a resolution, we need to call roll.
Correct. Ms. Schwam?
Yes.
Ms. Steele?
Yes.
Clerk is a yes. Supervisor?
Yes.
Treasurer?
Yes.
Mr. Velnick?
Yes.
Mrs. Grassman?
Yes.
Leonard?
Okay. Thank you. That is passed. So item 10, township mowing and fertilizing contracts for 2023 through 2025. This came through Services. Services was busy, it seems, this last time.
Yes, we were.
And I appreciate the vetting you do and getting that to us. So is there a motion to approve a contract with Priest Enterprises, LLC for all 5 of the mowing and fertilizing contracts for those years?
I would make that motion.
Moved by Michael, supported by several people, but I think I might have heard John. Is that right? We'll pick John. All right. Okay, so, yeah, an entity familiar to us. He's done quite a bit of work for us in the past, and I think he's done quite a nice job.
They have great, excellent reputation.
Yeah.
And they were our low bid on all but one of the 5 pieces. that we put out for bid. And so as much as it would be nice to have them, have been low on all of them, low on 4 out of the 5, and still giving them all 5, keeps us with one vendor that we've worked with before and trust. So.
Yeah, it seems to me we've even had debate in the past when they haven't been the bidder about measuring quality and price, right? Yep. So here you're kind of getting both, So.
And that's what I've talked about in the past was even if a contractor is the lowest, it doesn't mean we should have to pick them just because Priest has always done a phenomenal job. I don't think we've ever had an issue. I'm excited to have them back.
Good.
And I think we've tightened up our request for proposal standards, so we lay it out exactly what we're looking for. Because in the past, it was kind of apples and oranges is what we'd get for bids, but they bid on. So this is good.
Okay. Good. Anyone else?
Georgetown Township resident, too.
True enough. In fact, I think pretty close by. Yeah.
Yeah, substantially lower. They do phenomenal work, and happy to have them back as well.
Okay. Good for the township. All right. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? And that item is passed. Now we do come to the pickleball courts. I'm really curious how that name pickleball came to be. I don't know. I've played it a handful of times, but I've never asked that question. Maybe someone will enlighten us tonight. So this is before you tonight, almost until a motion is made here. It's going to be before you, I believe, for the limited purpose of a study, but yet, of course, it begs the question of the larger project itself. So potential project, I should say. So before we hear from, are you Jeff?
I am Jeff Howell.
I'm assuming, since I see your name there. We'll go ahead and hear from you first. How about that?
All right. I've been a resident of Georgetown Township for over 35 years. My wife and I live not only probably a mile from here. Been involved with, obviously, Jenison junior high, high school, all the grade schools. As I have 2 kids, now 5 grandkids. A number of them actually engage in the sport of pickleball. And I have a huge passion for this game. I've been a part of the game for over 9 years, both competitive, and I've run tournaments, so I'm tournament director as well. So I have I've kind of been ingrained in it. And there was a statement quite a while ago that if you knew pickleball, you knew Jeff. And if you knew Jeff, you knew pickleball, because that's become part of my identity. So I have a passion for it, and hearing its potential of coming to our area, I definitely, it falls in line with some of the things that I've been doing, and I'll explain that a little bit later. So.
Hey, Jeff, before you get too far in, will you turn the microphone towards your mouth just a little? I just want to make sure that everybody can hear you as well as we can.
All right. So I'll go through this where do I point? Here? Got it. And do I point here or there? There we go. All right.
I know what you should start with.
Yes.
Why is it called pickleball?
Why is it called pickleball? Right. Well, there's a lot of rumors about why it's called pickleball, but it's probably the easiest one to kind of grab hold of is the inventors in Washington. Actually, when they invented it, they had a dog named Pickles, and they invented it with some wood paddles in the driveway to entertain not only themselves but their kids, and it became a family sport. So that's kind of one of the theories. And if you look at the history of it, there's a few others that go out there, but that's probably the primary one. So I just want to enter just a little bit. There's a couple comments going out there, even online, when you see pickleball courts designed. These are some comments that fall on top of why I'm here today, in a sense. But comments like, it blows my mind how most courts are built with zero input from pickleball players or experienced players, and when they are, they're sure leaving a legacy for themselves. Unfortunately, many people are pulling triggers, are doing things beep backwards. They hire architects and know nothing about pickleball or how to design pickleball or how pickleball is played to develop rendering concepts which are usually get approved because many people just don't know the several key important factors. So I'd like to introduce some of those to you, a little bit of my qualifications. The American Sports Builders Association, the ASBA, is an organization that sets industry standards and helps organizations find qualified contractors in all disciplines and mutually committed to the highest standards of construction and maintenance. The ASBA creates manuals and guidelines to follow for pickleball, tennis, basketball, volleyball, multi-purpose fitness, and recreational areas across the country overseas with the model to build it right. ASBA provides a website that approves professionals, suppliers, and builders for various areas around the country. Our closest approved member is a resident, myself, in our Georgetown Township community. A little bit about myself. I'm a professional member of the ASBA, just joined them in December, and a consultant specializing in pickleball court conversions and new builds. Jeff fully embraces the ASBA Build It Right concept and also works with other members such as Racket Sports in Comstock Park, which is a premier court surface company in Michigan. I also provide consulting and project manager services to assist engineers, contractors, individuals, and municipalities to design and create highly efficient pickleball courts, maximizing their usefulness of available space, reducing associated costs, and helping them to brainstorm over possibilities they may not even be thinking of. The end result is a highly desirable indoor or outdoor facility, pickleball facility, with a focus on accessibility, containment, and most importantly, the social aspect that I know very well, thus building overall community. I'm very creative, and I have an extensive problem-solving skills from like 43 years of design experience in various fields. I am currently managing projects at all levels of engagement for pickleball, indoor and outdoor, and I have the ability to focus on the details while keeping an eye on the big picture. I bring over 6 years of specifically related experience, including conceptualizing, project and site management to develop and transition a 10-court facility in Grand Rapids into a beautiful pickleball venue of now 21 courts with a vast amount of creative amenities, which are serving the community of Grand Rapids and over 1,400 Grand Rapids Pickleball Club members.
Meaning it was 10 pickleball courts and you converted it to 21, or was it 10 tennis courts? Okay.
It began with 10. If you looked at the picture, I can show you a closer picture. When we started, the 10 on the left, the 8 on the left, it was 8. There was a court where the pavilion is now, and then 2 other courts. So we had 10 courts when I joined the club. Since then, we put up a bulletin board. We put up a real multi-purpose shed in the back. You can kind of see we actually gave up one of the pickleball courts to put the pavilion up. Everyone criticized me for doing that. Why are you giving up one of our pickleball courts? But the city of Grand Rapids actually then gave me 2 more tennis courts to put in 6 more pickleball courts. So at that point, we went from 10 to 15. Just last year, they awarded us. We work a lot with the city of Grand Rapids, and they absolutely love us in this park because we really take care of the park. We are constantly upkeeping it. They are putting very little money into it. So they actually granted us, there was 2 white polo courts in the back where you see the last 6 courts on the top of the screen, right? And we put those in last year. They came to us and said, you know what, we host, let me back up just a minute. We host one of the biggest professional tournaments in Grand Rapids, and this will be our 5th year doing so, called the Beer City Open. We bring in, last year the sign-up went for that tournament, and it filled up, it opened up in, I think like the 1st of April. It filled up in 12 minutes, and we brought in 900 people into Grand Rapids, and Grand Rapids City loves us for the fact of the economic impact to not only their hotels, their restaurants, their bars, all of that type of stuff. They started to say, hey, think bigger. What if we just tore all this out and made this bigger? And I'm like, yeah, but what would we do in the meantime, right? And I think so what we've been doing over the years is really converting and utilizing this property the best we can, but it now is 21 courts. The city finally stepped up and gave us $38,000 worth of bleachers to make a championship court that we actually broadcast through ESPN. Like I said, we had 900 people here, but 460 of those, I believe, were from out of state coming to our community.
So is that asphalt, concrete, or is that sport court? What is that?
That one is an asphalt. So it's like a 70-year sheet of concrete with stones. I mean, obviously, when we core for net posts, to put in net posts for pickleball. I have some of those cores at my house as kind of paper holders, but you can see they're actually concrete with stone, which we don't see as much anymore. So.
Let me ask you an honest question as far as if you're perceptive of what people in the area feel with something like that. You say you take care of it and you actually save the city money on maintenance and upkeep and the like. Does there start to be an ownership mentality among the club as if, hey, residents, this is for special professional types, or does the average person who lives in an area, can they drive over there if there's not a tournament going on and just use them at their pleasure because they live in the town?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's open to anybody to come and play. The city has kind of actually asked us, like a lot of communities, when you do have pickleball courts, there begins a club mentality a little bit to kind of help oversee those, because the city necessarily doesn't know pickleball. So they've kind of leaned on us in a sense of helping them manage that property, but all the amenities like fixing the fence that's been there for 50 years, we do that. We pay for that. We raise funds for that. We put amenities as far as shade for players, but anyone in the community can come play. And that's what's really nice about it right now. We have 1,400 members, but it's just booming that I used to go there and there was, out of the 15 courts, there would be no one on a court that I didn't know. This was probably 3 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. Just this last year, I'd walk around in the evening, and the courts have lights. They're open really from 6 a.m. till 11 o'clock. But I walk around, and I bet there's only 3 or 4 courts now that I know people on. And that just shows me the growth of it. Kind of the makeup of it has been a lot of our retired people. The courts are full from 8 to noon. We have some special designated days where ladies' days on Thursday, but then they're kind of vacant in a sense from noon to 3 or 4 o'clock. I'm a teacher instructor in the game. That's when I get a chance to get on the courts and actually instruct. But when it comes 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, we now have 20, 30, and 40-year-olds playing those courts, and they play till 11 o'clock when the lights shut off. They absolutely, populate, but it's all new people. It's community, it's neighbors. We do some youth or youth programs that we give instructionals for. Monday nights is our new player. Just come on out. We don't need a paddle or anything. We bought 50 paddles to run programs with, to hand out to people to come in and experience it. Once in a while, I know we have some fundraisers for the local neighborhood and whatnot as well. We have those programs that take place. So yeah, it's open to anybody. The company I created, it kind of came from a passion of seeing courts. I've played the tournaments across the country, from California to Florida, Cincinnati, Chicago, and see a lot of the facilities that are out there and where they either missed it big or they've done something right. And so I've actually been able to bring all of those type of things back to our community and back to Grand Rapids Pickleball, to really implement them and kind of make it a premium place. So I had to announce last year at our big tournament that I was resigning of that position because I felt a passion to pursue the ability to come alongside, and it felt like it was a conflict of interest. Now, helping people develop courts and consult with them, even in the 6 years, we take calls all the time of people wanting to put them in, whether it's Cortland Hills or places across Grand Rapids or Michigan that are putting them in. Can you give us some advice? Who should we call? What should we do? And I found that even though we gave some advice, they missed a number of the key components that really make it a desirable place. So I created a business called BGF Pickleball Court Solutions, and I basically have a number of different levels of engagement that you can choose from for my services. And there's 5 of them on the list here. I'll kind of go through them. There's some numbers that we've come up with saying for simple courts or like a backyard court or simple 3 or 4, these numbers may be excessive, but every project is its own. And so I've tried to, in my best, estimate. We're looking at 3 or 4 different park options or that type of thing. So the numbers I put on are my best guess at what it might take to kind of come alongside Georgetown and help them. So I'll kind of rush through this. Jeff will engage and consult with leadership part of the first step we do is we kind of sit down with your leadership group and basically say, what's your goals? What are you thinking? And basically come alongside and review your initial plans, some of the ideas that are out there, discuss opportunities and concerns, even public concerns, noise and that type of thing. I mean, it's one of those areas that we definitely look at. We look at individual locations and try to identify all the factors that are involved. I'll offer sound advice, present proven solutions, and make suggestions for direction to assist in accomplishing these groups' overall goals. The next level would include using that detailed information we got and actually doing some site visits and gathering some information, gathering dimensions, and basically to help guide decisions on the number of courts, the amenities that we might need. I then take it back, and my real job for years has been tool and die design or design work. I've been working in the design field since 1980, and in the die design trade, it's a lot of original concept that we basically, everything is its own thing. So problem solving is something that I encounter a lot. And so looking at that, using my design abilities, I'll bring back that information, create a CAD design to bring back to your group, have some discussion and feedback. Upon approval of one option or what we choose, an avenue we might want to take, I'll then formalize those and create 2D PDF files to give out to contractors with a clearly defined scope of work. And I think that's important. What happens a lot of times is that a contractor will be called in and a cement contractor asking, can you do this? Well, yeah, they can put that's what they know, but do they know pickleball? And so they end up doing their job right, but not really getting the good direction of what needs to happen. So that's where that scope of work comes into play as a very important factor.
You do the civil engineering then too?
Pardon?
You do the civil engineering then too?
You'll see it's mentioned later that basically a lot of my price structure is to come in and actually give you the option to have the knowledge of what pickleball is and to do some of that work that doesn't mean hiring a $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 project with engineering. That definitely will come into play, obviously, when you do some of those surveys and all that type of stuff. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to brainstorm with you without hiring that company that says we want to charge a big number for that. And so being sensitive to that, I'm trying to do it in an economical way that those features will be coded out separately as we need them and only when we need them, rather than contracting them out and having them done at 3 or 4 different sites when really we want to find out what we really want, what the community will actually approve first. So that's kind of where that comes into play.
Well, that's why I asked the question, because to do the site visit, you need to know what kind of soil it is, and the soil is going to require some sort of a civil engineering or borings or whatever, and that's where we're running into problems with our parks, because most of them are on very poor soil. I mean, that's why they're a park, because we have this thing in Jenison called muck. So when you go down 15, 20 feet, we're limited on sites.
Yep. So that does play a factor. I do work. I mean, part of my goal is not to just come in as I know all of this. I want to work with those professionals. I work with 2 different engineering firms, Fleece and Vandenbrink. I know Brian's here represented today, but also with Crane and Newhoff. And when I sat down with those guys over a project that they're working on, they said, "Wow, we didn't know half of the stuff that you just brought to us." And to be honest, they put in a lot of installations that they're taking critique over that we wish would have known that sooner. So they're looking at bringing me on board as that professional to help them in their launch of those situations versus, having me have all that knowledge. I'm going to go with them or go to them, and I know you guys work with different engineering firms as well. So I think that's where that expertise or those type of things will come into play. And if we choose on a site that says, hey, we not only need to take that next step, that's when that cost will come into play. To answer your question?
So Jeff, you're initially looking at the situation, maybe making recommendations which part of the township it would be
possible or you should be considering for about $4,000.
That would be the first two items, yes. That would be saying,
rolling.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So what I think is even more important than that, because what I'm hearing today, and I've heard some numbers thrown out of, $2, $4, $6 million, and I can attest to that those numbers are totally inflated. And I think the next step in that project is actually going to step 3 that says let's get a scope of work, in a sense, let's hand it out to get some pricing, to gain some knowledge, really to move forward in knowing that. So I know that the site committee, I believe, presented going through step 1 and 2, and that was, I think, the motion that was brought forth. Okay. My suggestion is to take that motion one step further to say this step is important, to go out to now gather some pricing and basically send those out for bid from concrete contractors, from the surfacers, from the fence guys, all of those entities that need a part in this, by the design and the scope of work that we define, and let me help you do that. And that's where then we have this discussion. It's roughly, depending on the number of courts, it's this number.
Sure.
And
so then we know how much the project will.
Absolutely. I think it's.
We do steps 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Gathering all that information.
So you stated in services that it's about 60,000, give or take, per court.
That is one estimate, yes, definitely. So I know that, if we're looking at 12 courts, 60,000, that's $720,000. That's not anywhere near a $2 or a $4 million number.
60,000 for a court?
When you talk about just all the things that you're talking about, is that you have excavating, you have site, all that site work that needs to be done. It definitely, especially when you're building new. So
that also would not include facilities, because specifically, I'm thinking Pioneer Park, because there's a decent amount of space. First of all, it's a little lower, so you're going to have to probably bring in a lot of fill. But then there's no bathroom there as well, so that's not counting that, correct? It's just the court itself.
It's basically the court, the amenities around it. Yeah, absolutely. That's.
And I think, not to interrupt your presentation, Jeff, because you're amazing. This is going great. But I think that just in the interest of kind of the scope of our agenda item tonight, and for the public's knowledge, our conversation tonight isn't about a budget for pickleball courts. Our agenda tonight isn't that we have some plan in place and we're ready to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on this. Our focus for our conversation tonight is employing your expertise to go and visit our parks and talk to us about things like, if we did it at this park, we could maybe put in 4 courts. If we did it at this park, there might be room for 12. If we did it at this park, there would be a lot of excavation that needs to happen, and you would need to build bathrooms or whatever. But for my colleagues' kind of focus and for the public, our conversation tonight isn't even about tens of thousands of dollars. Our conversation tonight is at least how the motion came out of services. It could certainly still change at this board meeting, but how the motion came out of services was about $4,000 to employ your expertise to help us get the ball rolling so that we know what our options are, so that we could come back to services and ultimately to the board with a proposed project in place where we might need to further contract into your levels 3, 4, or 5 if we wanted to, or maybe go in a different direction. Is that an accurate representation of our conversation of services, Amy?
Correct.
Okay. Yep. I just wanted to make sure that nobody is under the impression that we're here to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars tonight, or that we're here committing a budget to it, or that we're even here pulling the trigger for sure on pickleball courts in Georgetown. We're kind of dipping our first toes in the pool of pickleball courts, saying we can't do this without somebody who knows pickleball, and so we're interested, at least services was, interested in contracting with Jeff's consultant service to help us start to dip our toes into the pool and do it right from out of the gate.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
I kind of think after hearing hearing Jeff talking, that it might be beneficial to hire Jeff for steps 1, 2, and 3, because 3 is then when we actually know how much money it would cost if we wanted to go that route. So it's kind of the complete package.
My hesitation with 3 at our services committee meeting only was that I feel like before we're investing that extra $2,600, I want to know if we have a good location. Do you know what I mean? I feel like exploring 1 and 2, figuring out if we have a good location, and then if we have a good location that we're feeling good about, then adding on 3. That was kind of where my original motion was 1 and 2. But I certainly want to let you continue your presentation. I just wanted to make sure we didn't get too far into the weeds of how many hundreds of thousands of dollars we're about to invest in pickleball, because it seems like that rumor is out there that we're ready to spend everybody's hard-earned money. And while your consultant fees certainly are a dollar amount to consider, and we know it's our constituents' money, we're not talking the hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay you to help us start to dip our toe in the pool, right?
Yep.
And when I've looked at, obviously, working with these other engineering firms, that dollar amount that would happen if you went to them to do this, and I think that's typically what happens. I'm actually have gone through this entire process and this presentation with Spring Lake Township over a potential 4-court conversion, not even a new build. And it went through a whole process. They approved everything, and then they threw it back to their DPW, and he then went to the engineering firm and said, hey, can you help me do this? And they're going to spend a lot of money to actually do exactly, and then potentially they're going to call me again. But I would definitely like to work with those groups versus working against them or seeing things happen that don't have the input that I think I bring to the table. And so, in talking with, that dollar amount, none of this fee happens unless we say yes at any point in time. And you can tell that in step 2, I'm going to come back to the group and actually get their approval and do a definition of scope of work. If at that point in time we don't have one because we don't find a suitable place, it stops. It's more or less not having to come back to this group, wait 2 more weeks or 4 weeks, whatever it might be, to go to that next level. You're all in control, and this is the time that would happen.
Is there a lot more of your presentation? I don't know where you're
not too far.
Stage of it. Okay.
I'll try to rush through it too. So the 4th step I think is irrelevant at this point. It's really just some of the role I can play as a site manager to do that. A lot of times I'm working with different DPWs that they have that. They want to actually, one in this Muskegon, they actually wanted to handle it from here. Thanks, Jeff, we're going. And that's up to them. I work with the city of Granville. They said, can you be this for us? And I've been contracted with them to do that. So I can stop at any point in time based on their, these other steps. Here's where it talks a little bit, Gary, about, working with engineers and contractors for renderings, special surveys, environmental studies, and other investigative services would be quoted ahead of time and charged separately only if approved. And it may not be to me. It may be to that engineering firm as such. Just to say a little bit about myself, here's Paul Richards. He's on the board at Grand Rapids Pickleball Club. He's the director and co-founder of the Beer City Open. This is what he says, basically. We have seen way too many pickleball facilities built without consulting people deeply embedded in the sport. Jeff's experience and knowledge of where the sport has come from and where it is headed will be tremendous asset to anyone who is looking into building a pickleball facility. It will be money well spent. I have no doubt Jeff will be a great asset to those who choose to employ his consulting or general contractor services.
Well, Jeff definitely has the qualifications, and I think we've, selected the right person to look into this for us.
So my question is it seems like you're presenting the Maserati pickleball court. I want to know if there's a Kia and a Chevy and a BMW and a Maserati. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm a general contractor.
Yep.
$60,000 for that amount of concrete, that's a lot of money. 1,500 square foot house, I'm doing the math in my head, $40,000 of concrete. It includes the poured wall, the basement floor, the garage floor, the driveway, sidewalks, front porch. So I'm thinking to myself, well, pickleball court's what, 20 by 44?
Yes.
So that's 900 square feet.
So that's the actual court. So it's basically 30 by 60 or 66. So yeah, it's bigger.
So I'm doing the math in my head and I'm thinking that's a lot of money for concrete. Now, I get it. You want special surfaces on there, and you want. That's why I'm asking the question. It's all great to have the Olympic pickleball court, but is that what the township needs? And yeah, you like to play on the best. I like nice things too, but you know, I can shoot my Ithaca shotgun, or I can go buy another $1,000 Benelli. There's just a difference of whether I have the money to do that or not. That's why I bring that up.
It's a good question. So just like the city of Granville, we came to them with 4 different concrete, quotes. We basically said, here's obviously the ideal. What we're finding out is that a lot of people are going to a post-tension concrete.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
Yeah, that's just that is the premium, obviously, because it's maintenance free in a sense. I mean, if the concrete cracks, it'll crack, but it won't separate. And you can take that whole thing with a helicopter and actually move that entire sheet, right? You know that. So we basically came to them with those quotes as well as the standard concrete quotes. And basically, nowadays that difference is way less. Even with the price of petroleum, when we go to asphalt courts, which take anyone in Hudsonville can attest to the fact of playing on pickleball courts in Hudsonville, there is a lot of maintenance involved, almost annual maintenance to asphalt courts.
Right.
And so that's the asphalt is one level, standard concrete is another, whether we use wire mesh or those type of things, or we go to a post tension. So that's your choice. That's totally your choice. As I bring that forward, I'm bringing that to you saying, here's those choices and here's those contractors that have that
but I didn't hear that until I asked that question.
Exactly.
That's why I asked the question.
I totally appreciate that.
So,
absolutely.
Kind of along the lines of what Gary's asking, I would hope that in this process you keep an open mind and come back with if you're selected, I'm not presuming the board, but if you're selected, I want a variety of options and thoughts from you. That is, I could see you coming back and saying, we could do 4 in this park and 4 in that park. Okay? Well, we really have in mind a big complex. Well, all right, let's see what that looks like and where that might be.
Yep.
And then furthermore, the person who goes, look, I'm never going to drive across the township to the 12 courts or whatever, but I got a park down the street that's got 2 tennis courts. Can we convert one of those into, 2 pickleball courts or whatever, and you'll never have a tournament there, but everybody in that neighborhood will go use that, right? So, in fact, if anything, that's probably a little more money because you might still build a complex, meaning the township, and you might convert something in a park somewhere too. So I want to hear, I guess what I'm hoping for as a board member is I hear a variety of options that you have an open mind toward. It's not just about one big setup, but there could be other things to look at. Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of those type of things. As I've looked at some of the, as things deteriorate and tennis courts start the nets are sagging and they're, the areas I've asked my wife, I drive by parks all the time looking at the potential of here or there. And when you look at that, a lot of times you're running across a situation like Maplewood. They have 2 tennis courts there that is all cracked up and it's a mess, really. And it's like, I could put some pickleball courts there. The problem with pickleball is that it's such a social game that you don't come to a pickleball court like you come most often, like you come to tennis. You grab 4 guys, hey, we're meeting there, we're playing, and we're going to grab a court and we're going to play. Typically, pickleball is more of a social group that you come to a court and courts are full. Great, we're going to play more. We're going to actually put our paddle on the fence and we're actually allowed in to mix in with those individuals. Mm-hmm. So when you have people coming across town or traveling 10 or 15 minutes to a place, a lot of times we actually need enough courts at a facility to handle that and to be really inviting to that. If it's too many people there, they leave and they exit and they really don't come back again because those courts are always full. And so when we look at 2s and 4s, typically probably the minimum of someone like our community trying to put something in is a minimum of like 8 or 10 courts. And there's reasons for that because that then allows people to come from a distance even to come play with their friends or their residents that are here and actually not turn away and have to go somewhere else. Because once they turn away and go somewhere else, that suits them, they'll be there from then on. So.
And I trust because you're a resident here, that we have 54,000 residents. Granville has about 17. Hudsonville has, I want to say, about 13 or 14. Don't quote me. So I don't know how many courts they have in each of those locations.
I can tell you.
But we dwarf them.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about this, if we do this from a resident standpoint, right? Not becoming the mecca of West Michigan as much as, so I can very well see what your point is, and maybe that's what you all have to come back to us with is some explanation as well in terms of, well, this is why you want a nice big court setting of a lot of courts, but don't forget that possibility along with that you might say to a Maplewood Park or whatever, but over here, hey, let's convert a couple of those and here's what it might take towards, right? Because there's always going to be that little one-off where people just go, look, I'm going to do that into it, but let's go down there and hit for a while.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Jeff, I agree with Jim, and I hope you look at all the options. I'm sure you will. But when we had our open house, we had strong support for pickleball and real passion, very well organized. I think that some of them threw out a number of about 300 people in this area that are already very active over in Hudsonville, and I think if we had the facility, it would take right off. But right now what we're doing is just investigating, and I support A and B. And if you can get us rolling, otherwise our options is to look at our own staff, and many of them do not have the expertise, and we also don't have a lot of people. This seems very reasonable for what we're asking you to do. Whether or not we'd go ahead would depend on whether we have the facilities, and then we have to look closely at the monies involved. And I agree with Gary, as we want to look at, that seems like an awful lot of money for concrete. They're going to need to educate us and look at all the options of what we might possibly do.
So Jeff, we've received the presentation. I'll make sure you're concluded. If you aren't, put a bow on it, and then we'll deliberate among the board as it relates to this one subject tonight.
Okay.
So,
have you guys reached out? I know you guys partnered with Hudsonville Public, correct, to revamp some of their courts there?
I have not. I know that.
The HPC, is that a private or is it a nonprofit?
HPC, it's a nonprofit.
Yeah. Okay, nonprofit. Okay. Yeah. Have they looked into any type of partnerships with other nonprofits, like a church or anything like that? I'm just curious if they even worked out with some of that stuff, but
I can't speak to that. I don't believe so.
Okay.
They've been working with, obviously the courts they have were on school property, and it's owned by the school, but I know they put a lot of money into that. Those are asphalt courts that have had gaps probably that big and that deep that they have raised money and raised funds to fix those, and each year after that they're fixing them again. But they're doing it because there's 12 courts there now, and they're fully populated in I would say at any point in time when they are accessible to play. I think they're bursting at the seams as well. And it's I find a lot of Jenison players are there.
Did anybody put a pickleball court in their backyard?
Some. I know there's some here that are entertaining it as well.
I'm just always curious about that. I was like, well, if it's such a great sport, I'm gonna never see it in the backyard.
Once again, Gary, that speaks to that idea.
Our neighbors have one.
Yeah. Off of 16th, there's one.
That does speak to the idea that having a court in your backyard, and I've entertained the idea myself, but means then I have to bring everybody to my location. And typically, we talk about the importance of the social part, and I just would like to just mention this. So, the primary passion is to somehow tap into those engineering firms, municipalities like yourself, that are attempting to create facilities when they know very little about the major components of our wonderful game. Starting with safety, for one. That's a key factor in safety and distances and how big the courts are and all those setbacks and that type of thing. But followed by these three things: accessibility. How easy are the courts to get on and off? How accessible are they for people staging to play? Because that's the way they are. They're not get on and play till you're done and then leave. There's a constant turnover every 11-point game. Containment, kind of containing balls in your. This is a safety thing as well. Containing within one court. A lot of times you'll see courts that are just 4 or 5 courts all on a flat area. Balls are everywhere. There's no containment, that type of thing. But probably the most important part is the social and community aspect of this game. And so in my backyard doesn't achieve that. It really doesn't. I can be social with a couple different families and couples. Obviously, Amy,
It's a lot easier. You don't have to deal with anybody.
So basically having an area, a venue that people can come to and socialize and build relationships with. And that to me is where my passion is. My wife doesn't even play. She loves this game.
I like that. You're you're scoring with me on that point. I think community is important for community. I mean, for what we do and try to foster. What do you say to Jessica's comment about how this could be just trendy and could fall off, the face of the earth in a few years?
Okay. So, obviously following those reports that basically the sport has doubled, in the last 3 years. It went from 2 million to 4 million players. Last year, the reports or actually the beginning of this year went to 8.9 million players. And I sat in on as I joined the ASBA, I went to their technical meeting in California and sat in on this, group of professionals that have been doing this for every sports, venue around the world, basically. And hear them say that, out of all the meetings that I sat in on, there are elective meetings that you could sit on, I bet 70% of them, every one of them had the aspect of pickleball in it. And they say that their projected, and this was before the 8.9 came up, their projection was the year 2030 that we'd have 38 million players in this sport. And now it's a professional sport. There's professional leagues that have been formed. There's a lot of stuff going on the top end of this sport. But I still have a passion for what it was 8-9 years ago and seeing local tournaments and local friendships and relationships happen. But definitely the sport is not just a fad. We're looking at it. It's in our schools, our obviously elementary schools.
Is it a high school sport?
I can't speak to that. I don't know. I think that we're seeing, college teams form, that type of thing, having some competition in that level as well. So it'll take a little while for that, but it does look like it's potentially going to be an Olympic sport, which speaks to a lot because that has some criteria that it has to be played in so many different countries and accessible to all before it can even be considered. So I think so.
So is the javelin, but I don't think we're going to plan on that. Any other comments for Jeff? Anybody?
Jeff, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jeff.
Very well done.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is just in closing. This is really a project, one of my first projects actually in Richland. I actually partnered up with Lisa Vandenbrink as well to do these renderings, but this was a 6-court facility that we've done some renderings. They've gone and they're doing some fundraising on their own behalf to put this in down in Richland Township. And these are just some views of what that court looks like. Some of our work, you can see, working with an engineering firm to form up these renderings. I want to thank Brian, but this was 6 courts. This is where that $61,000 comes from. This is the full budget from excavating to everything. It was $366,000 that they presented. Obviously, with some contingencies built into that, like normal, but
no shelters or any.
No, this is an existing park, so they have bathrooms across the parking lot. They have some of those already in there, and I know that we have some parks that have those facilities as well that have those amenities. So, but that's just an example.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Okay, so I don't think we ever called for a motion. If I call for a motion, then we can have discussion directly among ourselves. Is there someone who wishes to move to approve of hiring Jeff as a consultant?
We'll make a motion to approve Jeff as our consultant on this project.
Support. Amy, supported by John. It's on the table before you all.
Do we feel like our motion specifically needs what levels of engagement from his presentation? Because he has it pretty clearly delineated, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And he does, in our item here does say 1 and 2.
That was the motion coming out of services.
Yeah, so the motion just as made right now, Amy, I guess she's asking, even though you didn't say it, are you tracking with what's in the agenda to say we're looking to move to approve levels 1 and 2 of that engagement with Jeff?
Well, I think Jeff also said that he's going to come to us every step of the way, and he's not going to do any other levels without our approval anyway. So.
Yeah.
I think you'd have support for 1 and 2.
Yes. That's good too.
3, probably not.
Okay.
Although I would say to you, I suppose that if a consultant is approved and this thing does continue to move forward, I don't think we'd change consultants midstream if things are going well. So I guess we'll get to that question when it should come.
So then do we have to go through another services meeting and then another township meeting to go to level 3?
I think yes, but I think it would be part and parcel of us kind of like services kind of having a recommendation to the board of like we think that bringing something to the board of this is kind of what we heard from Jeff, and this is the direction that services is thinking that we're moving. And so that kind of motion that would keep the ball rolling from the board. My understanding would be that part of that ball rolling could be to decide to continue with Jeff services or to decide at some point to terminate those services.
And I understand, the inherent nature of that question is you wish it was November, not March, right? Because the slower the roll, I suppose, the less likely of a build by whatever, people might have in mind. But
I would doubt it would get built this year.
All right, what's that?
I don't see it getting built this year.
No, I don't either.
Just to give everybody a pretty heads up, just
well, then
because
we're early, not late. There we go.
Right. And I'm just telling you,
it was first brought up in December, so
very true.
It was like 4 months out.
Well,
and it was never out of goal. So
we didn't have Amy in November.
Yeah.
She makes me look like a pickleball piker. You guys just call me a pickleball guy. I don't even hardly play, but I got badgered for bringing it up.
It was never brought up until
my only comment would be that should we hire Jeff, that he would work closely with our DPW guys, only because they know our parks, they know our soil, they know where we're at with some of this stuff, because they know the condition of our tennis courts, but they also know why those tennis courts are just depreciating too, because of the issues they have underneath the ground and stuff. So
I talked to the people at Byron Center a while back, and one of the things that impressed me is that their vandalism went way down. It brings stability to an area. Now, we haven't had that problem, but they were very, very pleased. And I know that Jeff had mentioned about Belknap Park. It's my old neighborhood. Across the street is Section 8 housing. It's really, really rough there. And to have a park where there's a constant movement and excitement, that's why they're thrilled with them. That's stabilizing that area. It's a brilliant thing to do. I think we'd have those same type of benefits.
I agree.
They say a prophet is without honor in his own hometown. You're actually a hometown resident. I don't see that as a detriment. I'm going to say that's a positive. Seems like if you're being reached out to and hired by other municipalities, he just happens to live in Georgetown.
We got to take advantage of our own.
Well, I mean, he might have been Byron Center, we might be hiring him, but we've said in the past, I know sometimes we've criticized ourselves over not looking before we leap. And I guess I just view this first step as a look before you leap, and it's not the leap itself. Mm-hmm. The leap would require, obviously, further investigation and vote when that time should come.
I think it'd be very well spent money to give us insight. And as I said before, at that open house, there was incredibly strong support. And we've received many, many emails from people that would like to see this at least investigated. To not do it would be a big negative.
Exactly. And I feel like maybe we'll investigate it and feel like the time isn't right, or we don't have the right location, or we don't have the money in our budget to do it the scope that we would want to do it. And there's a chance that is where this all ends up. And for the potential that we might end up there, I would want to be able to say to our enthusiastic pickleball community, listen, we investigated it. We investigated it with an expert who you know and have a relationship with, and these were our roadblocks. Now, I certainly hope that isn't where we end up. But I think that doing our due diligence to the pickleball community and to fiscal responsibility for our community as a whole, and to potential pickleball community and to our current park users, working with somebody like Jeff, working with Jeff specifically, helps us make sure that we understand all the pieces and parts so that we can make an informed decision.
Yeah. Well, I think your point, ultimately, too, it's going to be a board decision. Jeff is going to give us information. Mm-hmm. We're ultimately responsible as the ones elected for our ultimate decision on this. I would put him in the category too. Some people have mentioned, I've seen it at least on Facebook and to me, the survey. Were there enough mentions of it and so on, or weren't there? The survey is of a swath of the community, and it can be taken, I suppose, whichever way you like. It's an information point. Jeff is an information point and obviously one that's going to have more expertise on this particular subject. But I think ultimately we as board members, when that time comes, will have to weigh the differing input that we receive and make a decision accordingly and be able to be one that we can justify to the community. So I'm confident we can, but I don't think we can until we have the knowledge. So I have zero qualms about hiring Jeff and taking that first step, personally.
I think too, we're going to have to, before any pickleball, anything could come to fruition besides contracting with Jeff to get some initial information, it's going to have to go through our budget process, right? We would have to have a budget for a project, and we would have to know the scope of the project in order to assign a budget to it. And so this is a piece of that. We can't wait until we get around to our next budget cycle and be like, oh, we wanted to put in pickleball courts. Let's make sure that we put a chunk of money aside for that project if we don't have a clue what our options are and what the cost of what our options are would be. So I think that this is getting the ball rolling to support our budget process as well.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the issue is timing, kind of like what you said. We have a business that just spent millions of dollars to put in an indoor facility that opens up on Saturday. I just want to be careful of the message that it sends when somebody spends millions of dollars, a private business, comes in and puts in courts and puts in indoor facility. And it can be multi-purpose, it can be volleyball as well. But yeah, like they put that much time and that much money into it. And we're now talking about trying to kind of cannibalize some of his business as a private company. So that's a concern, as well as I'm looking at the utilities committee meeting, the next one, or that's right after this. And again, it's a discussion for a new public works building. There's a lot of expenditure items, and for an item that just came up, and I'm nothing against pickleball. My in-laws love it, and they've chimed in to me as well. So, but for something that was just brought up kind of in December, other than the nuances that you had here and there, and we know we have a potential utilities need. The fact that this business just opens up the same week we're discussing this.
So we're only looking at hiring Jeff.
True, but you don't want to be short-sighted as well. Right. Because you know you're investing $4,000. If you go to the third step, you're looking at $6,600. And to be short-sighted and just saying, oh, that's that much money. You know the goal ultimately is a facility, something outside, something inside. Who knows? I don't know what's going to actually come back. But you know that's the end goal. So you have to look at that as an investment potentially to the future for the planning. So I guess for me it's the timing issue. I mean, there's many churches, to go on the whole disc golf thing too as well. Wellspring has a huge disc golf place. There's many churches that have huge parking lots that I'm sure would love to partner to bring people into their own little community as well. So I just, for me, it still hasn't gotten to that point because it's only been 3 or 4 months of an actual discussion. It was never in our goals. I just think it got voted on an actual goal. It never passed. It never passed.
Never made the cut.
Put it up, but it never made the cut.
Michael knows how many years I didn't make the cut.
Didn't make the cut.
It's true.
Yeah, so that's my big thing. It's like, okay, hold on a second. Not going to be built this year anyways because of to find contractors and stuff like that. And just to go through the process with Jeff. I have no doubt that you are very good at what you do. So nothing is against you in any way. It's just hold the horses a little bit. I want to see. I just worry also because every single person just got a 5% bump in their property taxes as well. Inflation is insanely high. I just heard recent statistics that 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. I just don't want to be tone deaf to the fact that there is people out there that are struggling. And then to put in some type of huge facility or small facility or whatever, I just don't want to be tone deaf to those individuals that are struggling, putting in a hobby. It's exercise, I get it, but it is ultimately a hobby. I rent a basketball court. winter long. I pay for rent that. It's a hobby. I know that that costs. I like to go golfing. Again, that's a hobby. I know I pay for that. So that's why it's like, I just want to be careful spending taxpayer money that potentially could be a substantial amount. But I also don't want to be short-sighted in the fact that we know we're spending this much money for potentially a bigger project. So I guess that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Ryan. Our season's changing. I think you'd find a lot of people, if they got hooked on it, they would want to use that private facility in the wintertime, and it could really kick their business way up. In the summer, yes, it would be a alternative. But in the winter, especially with our tough weather, it could be a positive, exposing more people to it.
I also heard a price tag to play at the indoor facility, and I think that a piece that makes pickleball appealing to families and to cross-generational kind of playing experiences is that the cost involved isn't like golfing. The cost involved isn't like having a membership at the Y so that you can play on a nice basketball court. The cost involved essentially is, do you want your own paddle or not? And so for me, like when I heard a price tag to go play at the inside place, like that makes getting involved in pickleball cost prohibitive for my family if that is the option in Georgetown. Because we don't have money to go play at the golf course or to go play at the indoor pickleball place, where if we gave to our community without raising their taxes, so it's not like we are asking more of them. It's not like we're going to go to them and say, oh yeah, we're raising, your taxes that you pay to Georgetown so that we can put this in. That isn't where anybody, at least in my opinion, has been at. But we're going to put in this facility and there's relatively no cost to go play, and you can get involved in this hobby if you don't have money or interest in paying for a round of golf, if you don't have money or interest in paying for a membership to play indoor basketball. I see it as another amenity to a public park that is low cost and available to the masses, where people are looking for a hobby that doesn't cost them a lot of money because it's getting harder to put groceries on the table and because it's getting harder to, afford health insurance for your kids, or all of these different factors that are kind of weighing in for us. So
that's the beauty of capitalism.
Yep.
He priced himself out of market.
Yep.
And he's not filling his courts. He's going to have to lower his price.
Yep.
So, to my left, we've heard a lot on the right here.
So I guess I'm confused. So Services Committee didn't look into any kind of scope for this, a basic cost estimate, possible locations. It just jumped in head first, didn't get any other bids for other people that might provide design service. I think Jeff gave a great presentation, which is fantastic. I think he's very well qualified, but I think just the standard process of what we go through in Georgetown Township with committee is looking at multiple bids, for starters. Did the service committee find out how many churches have? Apparently all the churches have pickleball. I didn't know this. How many churches have it? I see a lack of due diligence on that committee and kind of a steamrolling through. And for me, I look at it, we set up goals. Pickleball didn't make it. It was in the preliminary round. Yep. So we haven't even completed all the goals from the goal setting, and now pickleball has suddenly jumped to the front of the line. And that survey, 2,700 respondents, it just wasn't a big call for it. And I think the sport's great and everything, but I think we need to read the comments of what the vast majority of respondents said, which is, stop spending my money. Because this is cart in front of the horse, which is the Georgetown method, and to me it feels an awful lot like the ice arena, which is, this is it's going to pay for itself. This is going to be fantastic. What do we lose on it? $6 million taxpayer dollars?
People voted on that one, right? I wasn't on the board then, but people actually voted.
I have no idea. I know there was a
voted on it.
They voted it down. They voted the bond down.
Big movement, getting kids dressed up in hockey equipment, going door to door. Just a real proactive kind of propaganda campaign. We lost a lot of money, and I don't want to go down that road again. I would like I don't know, let's explore the possibilities. Would it be, and this is something the service committee could do to start. Noise is a big issue. What's the extra cost going to be for noise mitigation? Spreading it out at multiple parks. Do we start, and that's what we did when we lined 8th Avenue Park 3 years ago, I believe it was. The idea was, let's see how much it's used. And then maybe we'll put some at Maplewood, maybe 1 or 2, or convert a court. And of course that never happened. So I think possibly starting with 1 park and then looking at some others if it's that popular. I don't like rushing into things, and a lot of people are not happy about this. I get it if you play pickleball. I'd like to try it sometime. I have nothing against pickleball, but we've had a lot of turnout, like at the town hall. That was definitely organized, which is fantastic. That's great. But it's not a true cross-section of this community. I think a lot of people struggling to put food on their table, paying high gas prices. What's the future of the banks? It's not a good time. It's just not a good time right now. I say we slow it down and just kind of do some basic due diligence in committee and then engage. I just think it's just way too early to jump into this.
We have been driving around to different parks and looking at facilities a little bit, but that's what we would need to hire Jeff for, because I don't know the soil content, and also our parks, department might have some insight into that as well. But seriously, right now, all we're really looking at is hiring Jeff to help us do some due diligence and to figure out, yes, this would be a good location, or we don't really have any location that would really fit what we want to do. So I think just looking at, what Jeff, his research and what he brings to the table, I think that helps all of us make a decision. You got to have an informed decision. So
we have a local resident that's an expert that has experience.
Yep.
He has a number of people that have terrific confidence in him. I think his credentials here speak for themselves. I was very, very impressed. I think $4,000, we don't want to spend any money if we can't help it. $4,000 is not very much for someone to consult. And you can tell he has a passion. He feels very strongly about this. I think you give us excellent advice, and it may be that it's not going to be a good fit. But what's the alternative? We don't have the staff that can explore this or the expertise. And here we've got a gentleman. One of the reasons we save so much money is we hire other people to cut our grass, like we just did with the Priest family. We farm out, and it saves us a fortune.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a way to bring an expert in for $4,000 and not have to worry about health insurance or anything else we have to pay on him in Social Security. He's a subcontractor. This is a deal.
This is us doing our due diligence.
Yeah, this is. And when you said that, doing our dual diligence, you got to be kidding me. And we've been talking about this for years. And finally, we're getting a consultant in to give us advice. It may get a thumbs down. But I was very impressed by him. And for a community of 54,000 people, and to have that Band-Aid down there at 8th Avenue that we call a pickleball park, it's sad. I mean, they're teaching the kids how to do this in gym classes now. It is exploding.
Well, and I guess that's one question I have too, is Jenison just spent millions. Did they install any pickleball courts in their latest multi-million-dollar expenditure? So they've got like 12 tennis courts, which is fantastic. A lot of people
16.
play there. 16?
16
That's
tennis
fantastic. It's a growing sport, the fastest in the world. Why didn't they install pickleball courts?
Because tennis is a high school sport, and so they use the Jenison courts for the middle school and the high school, and they also hold tournaments there, because not all the high schools have enough courts. You have to have at least 12. Like Unity, where I've coached for 15 years, only has 8, so they can't really hold tournaments there unless they have another location like Hudsonville High School, which they redid their courts and put in enough to have a tournament. So that's why Jenison has 16.
Well, that's why I'm surprised they didn't put in a dozen pickleball courts for this last round. They were doing
Not a high school sport yet.
Right, it's not high school.
It's for the community.
Yeah.
Because like the indoor walking was for the community, so they said, and their eye on the future.
So are we ready to call for the vote? It won't be
I
the
think-
last discussion we have.
I
We're going
just-
to have substance. Go ahead. Yeah.
I do think that this thing's going to be pretty cost prohibitive, but I do think it's worth the $4,000 to get the answers. Just because, we can guess all we want, but if he comes back with a large number, then we're going to say we can't afford this right now. And you're looking at $650,000 for 10 courts or whatever. $60,000 a court. I'm still baffled by that number. I do numbers every day. But I think the $4,000's worth doing the investigation. I mean, then we've got the answers. Then we'll know. Then we can have an informed decision to vote a yes or vote a no.
I don't have step 2 in front of me, but I don't believe prices came till step 3.
Step 3 was the soil composition as well.
Was that estimates from?
Because I think step 3 was when they actually looked at soil composition.
I have it in my.
That's
Can you
estimates
pull that
from
back up?
contractors? I don't have that.
Step 1,
Can that be brought back up?
1,600, step 2, 2,400.
I know it's tough to fit there, Jeff.
Step
but,
3 was,
I
that actually gathering
envision we're
data?
going to need further input of the board in between steps 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Since we seem to be on a path towards.
That's how we know the cost. Is when
Right. If that were the case, then
we won't know what the cost is
time to keep
until
it moving on that pace. I don't think we have to approve
I think
1 and 2.
Step 3.
So, I'm gonna call for the vote. Good points have been made. I mean, good debate, guys. It isn't the last time we're gonna talk about this, but we hear a consensus of maybe 5 of us that think let's get it going and look at what we potentially have. So, I'm willing to do a voice vote. So, but you look like you're ready to take a roll. So let's take a roll. Go ahead.
Grafton.
Yes.
Mr. Bellick.
Yeah.
Treasurer.
No.
Supervisor.
Yes.
Clerk is a no. Mr. Steele.
Yes.
Mr. Schwam.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right. We added a couple of items as 11A and 11B earlier in the meeting. So 11A was this potential motion here that was handed you here that we just found out about through Waterford or Sunset, and EDC would be needed sometime soon. And so it has to do with the Economic Development Committee. I've been a part of that committee. We don't meet hardly ever because it isn't needed all that often. It's not too often you float a bond for a major project such as what happened here recently at Waterford. It's going very well. I don't know if any of you have been by there, but it's built. It's open. And I went inside. It's beautiful. And they seem to be, by all accounts, seems to be a success thus far. So I don't think this is so much about, the EDC's got to convene because there are issues, as much as, there's a missed point in earlier approval given by the committee that presumably somebody in the process is saying, look, I got to make sure for my due diligence that is covered.
Right.
So to appoint to that committee, I'm willing to continue on it. It would be a reappointment for me. Rod Weirstein and Justin would simply swap, as Rod was on that as assistant manager. Dan Carlton was on it, and now Rob would, in essence, even though it's not written here, is taking his place, he'd be on that committee. And then Carol Skolma, who most of us know is previously on the board here, is willing. I interacted with her the other day to find out. I only found out about it Friday. Carol, would you do this? It's a 1 meeting thing. It's a 1 meeting thing. She said, you know what, that'd be fine. Obviously, I don't have the authorities. You guys have reminded me recently to make those appointments solely. So that's why these are here before you. And I'm going to make a motion to approve the appointments to the EDC as presented to you tonight here to fill these open positions, as I just stated.
I'll support that.
Yep.
Me too.
Support.
Supported. Any discussion?
It's a question. It was previously 8 members. Now it's 9. What's the reason?
I don't think that is
because Blitzrock would have filled in what
Yeah.
Dane is. You're adding Carroll as the ninth.
Boy, if that's true, then I'm glad, because now we have an odd number. Won't run into a tie vote, but
Has there ever been any split vote?
all I know is the last time we voted, we met was like 3 years ago. I can't even remember who's on there, except
was 9
that
last
they're
time.
in front of me. Yeah,
It was 9 last time.
was it? Okay.
I just counted unless there's something missing. Is our website incorrect?
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So somebody's missing. Roger Burris, I remember, because he chairs the meeting. Who else there is?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Perhaps inadvertently
7,
omitted.
8.
I'm not sure.
Roger Burgess, Dan Carlton, Sandra Roskamp, Jim Waringa, Eric Hartman, Terry Prince, Ron Van Single, and Rod Wersing.
Okay. So who did you just?
So was Rod
There was
Wersing
only
not
8.
on there before?
I think you listed 8.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is there's 8 currently.
Did you count Rod in that?
Was Rod not on there before, or did they take his
Rob
name
would
off?
replace Dan,
Dan.
and Justin would replace Rod.
Yep.
The addition is Carroll being added on.
So they're adding a 9th.
That'd be 8 to 9.
Yeah, that's.
That's right.
I guess
that's
I
right.
had. I trust. I just don't recall. There you go.
1,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5.
Personally, I'm fine with 9.
Yeah. I don't know that there's any limitation
One-time
on it, and it's like, it'd be nice not to have a potential for a tie vote, although I'd be surprised if it were 9-0, and this is somewhat of an exercise, if you will. I just need somebody to perform that exercise with us so that we have the necessary quorum in full committee. You may feel differently, but I think I'm hearing just by the that we've at least got 4 of you that say, fine, go get it done.
Jim, the meeting price is $85.
Oh, do we get paid for that? I don't
Yeah.
know that. I've not been
The
paid.
committee.
That's committee you get paid though. So in the interest of saving money, I'd say stick with 8, or probably if you're looking for an odd number, I'd say drop 7.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. So it's before you. It's $85 to add, I guess, a 9th member. We've got a motion and a second. We can take roll call again on this one.
You've mentioned a number of times that you felt this committee was not giving you the authority to make appointments. I sure feel you do. And
this one would be one that I think would be the least controversial, but nevertheless, everybody's entitled. Why don't we just take a voice vote? It seems like it's 5-2. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so 6-1. That carries. So now 11B and over to Gary and his Speedo. I'm sorry, Gary about the swimming flag.
There you go.
That's a vision.
Just to comment on this, I'm a little bit. I have no problem with the slip and slide on Saturday. I think it's been a great event, but I'm just wondering about opening up just the Friday night to a specific group. I see this as precedent setting that I always am concerned about. Precedence what destroys a lot of things down the road, and so that's why I bring it up, because I'm not opposed to the Saturday thing. It's just Friday night, and you know what's going to happen. People are going to show up, and if they turn them away, they're not going to call the organization. They're going to call the township and say, "How come we couldn't do it Friday night?" And so I'm just bringing that to the board.
I think that they said they're going to let them in as youth groups, and if people show up, they're going to say it is private, but you can join us.
But that's not in the letter that they have.
Yes.
That is not what we have before us in the agenda, because I read it again tonight. So saying it and writing it are two different things.
Okay.
I'll take their word for it personally. We don't do enough community events, so I was like, go over to Granville. They got this or that. When somebody takes the initiative like that to do something, I'd like to, not that you're not supporting them, but give them the benefit of the doubt, I guess.
Okay. I mean, and I just think it's something that needs to be brought up at the meeting.
It's fair.
And I was just trying to be fair about it and go, we got to be a little careful, because on Monday morning the phone rings because, hey, we went to this thing and we couldn't do this.
Just call Justin or Rob,
They're going to call those guys.
I like those guys. I want to keep those guys. Our job is to make sure that they don't get those kinds of calls, right?
Gary, that's a good point, and that was discussed in services. So we're going to keep an eye on it and see if it's an issue. It does say if someone to show up that's not a youth, they will redirect them. So I've had that conversation with Robin Johns, and your point's valid. The services discussed that, and if it turns into an issue, that'll help us reevaluate in the future. So
My concern, Gary, so that you know, when we first started hearing about it, it seems like it was going to be like an event for our specific youth group. And I get the vibe that it's more them trying to bring in as many youth groups as they can for like a fellowship.
Yep.
And so that to me felt community enough.
Okay.
That's kind of when my perspective on it changed, when it wasn't just for one specific youth group, but it was a kind of a coalition of youth groups. Let's all come together, let's connect with each other.
Yep.
That felt like a fair community use of the park space, especially because anybody else who shows up, I mean, they can, what I hope that they will say, and kind of the direction that they've been given is, this is a private event for youth groups, and the public event is tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then if somebody stays and goes on it anyways, then so be it.
Okay.
But I honestly think that somebody could show up and go and not hit anyone's radar because every youth group is going to think that they're connected to a different youth group, right? I could probably show up with my kids even if my church's youth group isn't there and everybody's just going to guess I'm with somebody else.
Gary's showing up.
Gary's showing up in his Speedo, I heard.
Yeah, I'll be there with Jim. We're going to be, yeah.
Yeah. I like
So
it.
I'm, you know, like I say, I'm not trying to throw stones, just saying the precedent. I just get nervous about the township ultimately has got their name at the top.
You always have, I appreciate, you always have good pick up on stuff, so, you know, you need to think about those things, and I appreciate it.
Well, I get a lot of those phone calls in my lifetime, so that's why you learn. So,
Since that was...
Stop letting them put you...
I'm good. I'm good. I just thought I'd mention a discussion item. Wasn't really looking for any.
Okay.
It was pulled from consent agenda. Do we need to make a motion to approve the slip and sign?
Do.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Support it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, this is discussion, second public comment period. So anyone from the public who'd like to step forward and speak to the board, now it's open. So whatever subject you'd like. Don't have to, but opportunity's there. Okay. Seeing none, we will close the second public comment period. Discussion, general information among the board. I have just one thing. I know I brought it up last time. When we meet the next time, I'm going to hope to ask you to commit to a Monday night, perhaps in May, because nobody wants to think about June or later, to talk about goal setting, kind of getting it back in the realm of when we used to do it roughly, only because, as was said tonight, while, you know, the budget's coming up and it's like if we don't start these discussions soon enough, then things won't percolate far enough by the time we do a budget if there's something indeed we want to include. So I'm just saying, check your calendars and you thinking about maybe one.
Why don't you email us some dates?
Yeah, I'm thinking second Monday right now, but
okay,
that's fine. Do we know what the fourth Monday is? And
What's the date? Do you know?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. Ryan's always on top of that stuff. Ryan,
what's that date?
I'm getting it. It is May 15th. Or no, it'd be actually May 8th.
Oh, I am sorry. That's our meeting night. I meant May 15th. Third. Yeah. So you don't have to say right now, but just.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else?
I was in Washington, D.C. this past week doing some congressional lobbying, which was a really unique and awesome experience. But the piece that I want to share with all of you guys is it gave me a number of opportunities with the Michigan delegation on Capitol Hill in D.C. And their staffers to introduce myself as somebody from Georgetown. And it was a really cool experience to hear how that was met by different representatives and just to have people say kind things about Georgetown Township and the time that they had spent here. Everybody was just really positive and kind. So thanks for all that you guys do to make this community a really cool place, because it was nice to kind of brag on being from here. So
for supporting us there all that way.
Anyone else? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Wait.